I'm Jim Tucker. This is the 9th McKee Learning Lunch. We started as a unique learning opportunity several years ago, and it has turned out to be such an interesting idea generator that we are continuing it, and we hold about 2 of these each semester on issues or questions that are very difficult to know just where to go in a response or an answer. The purpose of this lunch discussion is not to solve any problems. It's to generally raise the right questions so that the solutions have at least a projected direction. To that end, we pick topics that are of great interest, and the one that has been selected for today is certainly in that category. I'm not going to discuss it further because that's the purpose of our speaker and the purpose of what we're going to do. But there is an assignment, and I'm the one who has to give out the assignments. There is a 3x5 card beside you. You come here today with or without any knowledge or a lot of knowledge about Chattanooga 2.0. With whatever knowledge you have, we would like for you to write on that card the most burning hot question that you have about Chattanooga 2.0. And we're going to take about 2 minutes for you to think about that right because we're going to collect these. What question, what do you want to know about Chattanooga 2.0? Jared comes to us as an educator, but in this role, it's much larger. He is the program director for Chattanooga 2.0. And Jared, I haven't figured out what that is. Have you? That's kind of what I thought. Because it's huge. Jared works for Public Education Foundation and the Chamber and represents the city and the county and the region that we know and love. And we're giving you a little bit of time to tell us why we're here.
Great, thank you, Dr. Tucker. Since everyone in this room has seen some version of this presentation and this data, or at least 99% of you have, I will not belabor going through my typical PowerPoint presentation and throwing data on you. Instead, I'm going to take 17 minutes because you cut into part of my time. So I'm going to extend just a couple of minutes and make this a little more interactive and give you some background information that I think helps with the context of what we're trying to do as a community, and also I think helps us answer what the question I put on my card, and I would love for you to write this at the top of your little brown paper, if you don't mind the teacher in me coming out here. What happens if we don't do something? If you don't mind writing that at the top of your page, what happens if we don't do something? And I think sometimes that's the underlying question to so many things that we're involved in, especially in education and initiatives like this. So if that is a background question, I'm going to walk through some of this data and give you some additional information that I typically don't share whenever I do the presentation. When we start this conversation, we started as an economic imperative, and we said we've got to couch this as an economic imperative. And we talk about opportunities. We've worn out the word opportunities in this conversation. And as I started wading into this more, I started realizing there's a big difference in opportunities and access to those opportunities. It's like my daddy, I can tell you, we've got a barn load of mowing equipment, weed eating equipment, that the opportunity's there for me to use as much as I want to, but me utilizing those opportunities is different than the equipment sitting up there. I try to get my son to utilize them more than me if possible. So as we look at these job opportunities that are coming and post-secondary opportunities, we've got a talent base that we're not supporting to connect to those opportunities. So my question, and we're going to spend 30 seconds on each slide with this. Somebody tell me what happens if we don't start connecting our local talent to these opportunities. What happens if we don't do something? Around this opportunity of approximately 10,000 jobs coming over the next 5 years.
Jobs won't stay here.
We lose them. And I know Bill Kilbride, you probably have to deal with this on a weekly basis. Companies saying, you know, what's the landscape going to be like if and when we come to the community? Are we going to have to recruit, or is there going to be a talent pool there that we can draw from? One of the things we look at is what types of jobs are out there that pay a living wage in our community. 83% of the jobs right now require some kind of post-secondary credential. This could be a 2 or 4 year degree or an industry certification. So I'll give you some facts I don't typically cover in this presentation. Right now, approximately 2,800 students graduate from Hamilton County schools each year. 1,000 don't enroll in any post-secondary program right out the gate. 1,000 go do something else. Now that may be enter the workforce, may be, you know, go find themselves in a foreign land or something. They don't enroll in post-secondary. 1,800 do enroll in some kind of post-secondary program. Of those 1,800 that do enroll, only 900 complete some kind of degree or certification in 6 years. We have 1,900 students out of each graduating cohort that do not get a post-secondary credential. What happens if we don't do something about this?
Businesses will not be attracted to Chattanooga because we don't have the workforce to provide their employees.
What about the 1,900 students that are out there doing whatever? You know, they may be working, but they don't have a post-secondary credential.
They won't make a living wage.
We look at the academic trends in Hamilton County. Literacy is such a barometer for success, especially third grade literacy. You can see here the trend and it got cut off for some reason, but the dark blue line is Hamilton County's average and the light blue line is the state average. And you can see we're performing under the average and the trend is downward. And the third grade end of year proficiencies are around 40%. 38% of our third graders are on grade level at the end of the year. When we think about poverty as an issue, which obviously we know that's a factor in one of the challenges that educators face every day, the students, the backgrounds they're coming from into the classrooms. If you look at national statistics, if a third grader is not on grade level by the end of third grade and they come from a home that is entrenched in poverty, they're 4 times more likely to not graduate on time. The flip side of that is if a third grader in poverty is on grade level by the end of third grade, 90% of those students do graduate on time. What happens if we don't do something about this? You people are typically, this is a talking drill. I mean, we got preachers in the crowd.
Graduation rates are going to continue to fall.
Graduation rates fall.
There's a lot more in that 90%. I mean, there'll be a lot more students that are part of that 90% that don't make
And the question about poverty, right? How are you going to bring this community out of this poverty if we're not providing the education for these struggling?
Right. Also, as educators, how many educators that's been a teacher, administrator before in here? what about kids that are coming middle school, high school, that are not reading on grade levels? They're not reading on third grade. What's that tell us year after year? It's a game of what?
Catch up.
Catch up. Catch up.
They never catch up.
Then they won't be prepared for college or any post-secondary.
And Sarah points this out a lot, this 40% number, that kind of stares us in the face here. When you look at, we'll look at early childhood numbers, but 40% of our kids are in an early childhood program, 40% of our third graders are reading at grade level, 40% of our high school students are approximately meeting college and career ready benchmarks, 40% of our graduates are obtaining a post-secondary credential. Look at math. You see, we do actually do a good job in elementary school of we outperform the state average, and it takes a little bit of a nosedive in middle school. We perform under the state average, and people don't realize what a barometer also math is for success, especially around some of our advanced manufacturing jobs. And just that critical thinking mindset, not that you're going to go use a quadratic equation on an assembly line somewhere, but it's the critical thinking skills that is promoted in math.
Can I ask a question? If we look at state average, how does the state average, local, state, compare nationally?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I think with the global community we're dealing with, we're not just looking at just a small picture anymore. And I think that's also something very important for us to see how we're competing, because these companies coming here are not just
If you're
isolated
talking,
companies.
if you're talking about our rank, like our NAEP rank, I can give you that. I don't know if the trend looks like this nationally, but we're 41st, I think, on NAEP in 4th and 8th grade math as a state. Is that, Robert, is that pretty close? Yeah. So I mean, we're not in a good place as far as rank nationally. We're 34th in literacy on when you look at the national report card. So we're in the bottom quartile.
The reason I say that is, we're dealing with some pretty low state percentages anyway, but some of those national percentages can be very small levels too. Nationally, I mean, we may be, I'm just saying, we may be looking at a trend that's all around us, not just in our community,
Yeah.
which is a resource question to look into.
But it also begs the question of what is good. You said we're doing pretty good at this, and being able to compare, how we stack up in other things than just a state comparison.
Yeah. And one of the statistics I pulled from national research is that a student who, with low levels of math proficiency, on average earns $1.30 less an hour than a student who graduates at grade level with what we would consider just normal math skills, average math skills. Look at access, and this is one of the more sobering statistics, that an African American student has a 16% chance of attending one of the lowest performing schools, not just in Hamilton County, but in the state. The other way you can do the math on that is that an African American student is 33 times more likely to attend one of these low performing schools. The other factor is when you look at Hamilton County as a whole, 60% of the students are on free or reduced lunch. So it's not just an issue of race, but poverty permeates this conversation as well. And so what happens if we don't do something about this as access issue? Nobody wants to talk about elephants in the room, that kind of stuff? To Chattanooga, that kind of stuff?
It gets worse. Poverty gets worse.
The circle continues.
And it affects our entire community.
Actually, in the divide of two Chattanoogas gets wider and wider and wider. Look at post-secondary attainment rates. The dark blue is Chattanooga State, light blue is UTC. In a 6-year window, you can see about a quarter of students enrolled in Chattanooga State obtain some kind of post-secondary credential, about half of UTC students do. When we think, again, go back to that 83% of the jobs making a living wage require some kind of post-secondary degree. This is a pretty important graph. And we think about some of the minimum expectations now to be ready for post-secondary. What's the minimum to get in Chattanooga State or UTC without enrolling in remedial courses? On the ACT, on the ACT. 19. We've got 5 high schools right now with an average ACT of 16 or less. And I can promise you, I mean, there's some great things going on in the high schools to aggressively address this, but it is a monumental task to jump 3 points. I mean, Robert has been a high school principal. I can remember we threw a party when I was a high school principal. We went half a point one year. Like, we were ecstatic that we had moved our school average half a point in a year.
We look at 0.2 of a point as something to take a serious look at, either direction.
Yeah.
The scores.
So what happens if we don't do something about post-secondary attainment? What happens to the quality of life?
Jobs never become reality.
One of the aspirational goals of 2.0 is to have 75% of our residents with a post-secondary credential of some kind. This is building off of the governor's Drive to 55 initiative, where we said, we don't want to be average with the state. We want to go beyond the 55% of residents. We want 75%. We're approximately 40% right now. But if we can hit that 75% number, which I can lay it out for you how it can be done. It's not pie in the sky. We bring 8,000 adults out of poverty. And when we start doing that, we start moving from an economic imperative to what? A moral imperative. 8,000 adults out of poverty. Look at early childhood. 43% of 3 and 4-year-olds are in some kind of early childhood program, and that's a huge factor in a student's success, how they enter kindergarten ready to learn. So is that kindergarten teacher playing a game of catch up that starts on day one, or are there some foundational skills there that they can build off of? Students who come from a home of poverty, where parents are working multiple jobs or single parent homes, they're exposed to so many fewer vocabulary words that makes a huge impact. And a student who comes from an environment that has the challenges of poverty, has the family dynamic is a challenge, typically comes into kindergarten being exposed to 8,000 words, 8,000 different words, as opposed to a student who comes from middle income homes are exposed to 20,000 plus words by the time they're 4 years old or 5 years old. What happens if we don't do something in this area of early childhood?
Fewer words.
And what happens if we start having this myopic view that early childhood is pre-K? What is early childhood really? Birth to kindergarten. And I was speaking at Chat State the other day, and we were talking about how in this game of catch-up, you've got college professors that say, man, those high school teachers didn't prepare these kids coming into college. High school teachers say, man, those middle school teachers didn't prepare these kids coming into high school. And the middle school teachers say, well, I don't know what those elementary teachers are doing, but they're not preparing kids coming into middle school. And the elementary teachers say, I don't know what's going on at home, but they're not preparing kids to come into kindergarten until eventually you just work your way back to the womb And, you know, it starts at birth. And most everyone in here has seen this narrative, and this is where, again, we start moving from an economic imperative to a moral imperative. And how I shared this with teachers last night, and I started by saying, you know, this isn't an indictment of the brain or feeder pattern, this isn't an indictment of teachers there, because we know there are teachers and administrators working hard every day, making progress. I mean, progress sometimes is bringing a freshman up to a 6th grade reading level because they started the year at 3rd grade. But when you think about this hypothetical cohort of 100 kids that would move through the brain or feeder pattern, based on the data we have today, that roughly 10% of them are going to be reading at grade level when they leave elementary school. 35 of them won't even graduate. 0 will hit all the college and career ready benchmarks. I mean, I've shared this with people outside our community, just friends in this work, and they think I'm making it up. They think I'm trying to sensationalize data to try to get support. This is happening every day. 1,600 kids are living this every day. What happens if we don't do something about this? And how do we support kids in high school, middle school now? I mean, we have this idea of generational work, and I think that's where the impact is going to have. If we say we're starting at birth, and we're going to see a cohort of kids come through where we support them consistently, grade to grade to grade to a job. But we've still got some middle school and high school students that are there at the deep end of the pool now. What do we do for those students that can't wait on the generational change to come to them? And the other side of that, how do we sell people on generational change? I've been in a lot of meetings where I've said we need a 13-year plan, and everybody looks like, what? I'll have 4 different jobs in 13 years, you know? So that's where I think community, this has to be sustained by the community. It can't be sustained really by even an entity, a 2.0 entity. You know, that may come out of this, I don't know. But the community has to sustain this. It can't be one organization. It can't be lead. It can't be, even if we all put our arms around this and we're going to drive this, if the community doesn't sustain it, it will not make it that generation. So that's my 17-minute spiel. I'm going to, also on your comms, reminding me on your table, if you haven't already signed up on the website, you can fill out one of these cards if you want to receive updates and you want to know what can I do. That's everybody's quick. What can I do to get involved in this work? Fill out one of those cards and we'll stay in touch with you on opportunities as they come up.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Yes, the blue card.
The blue card. Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. You want to give him a hand? Sometimes scary information deserves careful note. I heard some scary information. It's easier to talk if you have eaten. And we usually save the food until after the speech. And you didn't take 2 of my minutes because I took 2 of your minutes when I did the assignment, which was supposed to have been when I said it, but on the schedule it was later. So we're in good shape. We have 2 additional people. You have assigned seats. Valerie, where's Valerie?
She's over there.
Okay.
This is Valerie's seat, and okay, your seat is there. And we're going to go through the serve line, and we'll do it by table, and I will release the table. And in the meantime, where's our assignment to?
Right here.
All right, if we'll hand those out. Let me tell you what happens now. As soon as you're ready to start talking, there are 3 questions. Jared gave you 1. And that one is a version of one of the 3 that is on your assignment sheet. So here are there are two pieces to this next assignment while you're eating. One, look over the questions, address the questions, discuss the questions, come up with whatever you believe are good responses to those questions. Have a recorder write the solutions or the answers or whatever you want to write in response to those questions on the sheet that you'll receive. Appoint one person from your table as a spokesperson for your group. You'll end up on a panel here at the end, and when we'll discuss as an entire group what the panel has to share. The panel will summarize and then we will all discuss. So you have a recorder and a panelist. Can be the same person or a different person, responding to those three questions. Any other questions you have? Okay, you can start that anytime you want to, but eating will start with this day. I think the solution is absolutely in the air, but we haven't figured it out yet, have we? So the way we do the panel, everyone is free to talk or to engage or to participate, but we use the panel as the kind of spark to get us into whatever we're going to talk about. So feel free, if you're in the audience, feel free to break in or to add to or to ask a question. If something isn't clear, that's fine. We will start just with the questions as they were listed, and we'll go through the three questions as they were listed on your sheet. And we'll actually do it by just going down the list. You don't have to talk long, because we only have a short time to summarize all of this. But if you'll just take that question and kind of summarize what your group came to as a conclusion about that question. Notice I did not say as an answer to that question or a solution. But where did this question lead you? And you may as well start and go down the list.
All right. So our group, I guess I could say that we have a consensus that there is a critical mass in the community with courage and understanding of that there is a problem and willing to act. There's still a major question about what the rallying cry is. What would unify people, or what is going to be the solution that would create that collective people working together? That's still a possibility.
We actually thought that there was a will, inspired probably by different motivations, but there was a lack of the how, and that's what we have seen that has been occurring. That for various reasons, we all want to see things happen, but no one has really addressed the true identification of what it's going to take to make it get better. So we made a difference, a differentiation between those two.
We kind of built off that a little bit by saying people have to understand what they are being asked to do. So are we asking the school system to make better decisions? For instance, hire teachers earlier so that we can get the best. Are we asking parents to get more involved in their individual child's education, and how are we asking? Are we asking the community to hold our elected officials more accountable for this data? So I guess the why and the how is how are we going to be able to do this?
I think we started off by determining that it's not just a school problem. We are hearing school statistics, but it's not just a school problem. And she mentioned politically we've got to get those who are decision makers involved. We need additional partners and a change of mindset. We also came to the conclusion that we really don't have a choice as a community, because if we don't do something about the educational process, everything else is going to be affected. Crime, economics, jobs, all of those things are gonna be involved.
Let me pick up on that just a minute. You say we really don't have a
We
choice.
really don't have a choice.
Is that different now from what it's been in the past?
Probably so, because we've identified the rut that we're in.
Oh.
Okay. We used a scenario, and I'm a preacher, you have to stop me. But I've worked in other communities on crime issues, and we use the scenario as a ship, okay? If we're all on a cruise ship and a hole comes on the south side of the ship, you don't keep sunbathing on the north end. We all come and try to plug that hole, because if the ship goes down, we all go down together. And what we're talking about is a hole that's widening. And so we really don't have a choice as a community but to come and wrestle with these issues.
And you're suggesting that we now recognize the hole in the ship?
I know I have. When I first heard these statistics, it blew my mind. I knew it was bad, I just didn't know. And I think that's kind of the collective will around our table.
Okay.
And so ours, we had touched on many of the same things that you all touched on, but you've got to include the entire community in the conversation. You can't just select certain communities. And one community that's missing from this conversation, that I see missing from this conversation, are the private schools. These 3 private schools are over 100 years old. I worked in one for 19 years. They're not going anywhere. They're in our community. They're treated as the unwanted stepchild because they're taking the cream of our crop students away from the other public schools. Well, the public school system has got to get in there and provide education, so these parents are drawn to all the schools, not just the suburban schools that are lucky enough to have active parent organizations. So that needs to happen. They have the resources. They have the knowledge. They want to be part of this conversation. And the other part is that this moral imperative we have as a community, we have to come together for the betterment of Chattanooga. And we all know, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, you know, our system is so entrenched. It's so entrenched with an attitude. I went through the public schools. I was bused in 1973 to James A. Henry Elementary School. It's entrenched, and how do we begin to address, not threaten these individuals, but bring them along and get them involved in this conversation, because they've got to be part of this conversation as well.
I'm glad you brought up the private school issue. I've been doing some research over the past several years, and I was amazed at how difficult it was to get the trust of the private schools before they would give me the information. But I think we have it now. And what I've discovered is that between 21 and 25, now that's a pretty broad, but that's the best data we can get. Between 21 and 25% of the students of this county or this district attend public or attend private, parochial, or home school.
Right.
I mean, I haven't yet found another city of this size that has anything close to that. And that has to be considered as part of it. Is that what
I
you're
agree.
saying?
Yes, absolutely.
So are we allowed to ask questions?
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to believe, but what's the evidence that the private schools want to do that?
The leadership in these 3 schools now, they want to be part of this conversation, and I can say that with confidence. Lee Burns at McKee School, the school he was at in Memphis, Presbyterian Day School, they started a summer program for the Shelby County teachers. It was funded by their school community to provide professional development for these teachers. Scott Wilson is out in the community everywhere I see. He's right there. He wants to be involved in the conversation. And Autumn Graves, who came from outside of the Chattanooga community, she wants to be she wants her students to be part of this conversation. Not only they don't want to be seen as the school up there on the hill, you know, that overlooks the city. These girls, I was there for 19 years. I know these young women want to be involved in this community. They are so eager to be part of the conversation of everything that's happening. When you brought one of the last times when I was there, now I'm at CGLA, one of the last times I was there, we had a group of seniors come together, and they had to identify community problems that they were concerned about and issues they wanted to see changed. Number 1, education. Number 2, How do you address the gang problem? These are educated children. They know their community. Let's get them involved in this conversation.
Good. Thank you. Dr. Wilson?
Okay, we started from a series of questions, but I will kind of paraphrase for you. After we read the question, we said one of the first steps has got to be an honest recognition and admission of where we are. So it can't just be, oh, we're really doing better and we'll let you know, and we can't continually change the metrics to measure what we're doing. It's got to be consistent. We also talked about something that some of the others have alluded to. Are we too stuck in our own neighborhoods to recognize that the issues that are facing us are across this area? So if I'm satisfied and I'm happy, whether it's a private school or whether it's just I live in a community that has a good school, am I willing to step outside and say, but over here in other areas, they don't have that same access or they don't have that same quality? We did talk about the politicians, and we said the value to them could be translated into votes that could help us. But we've got to figure out exactly what that would look like. And we figured we needed to tell our story and market very well to make sure that everybody understands where we're coming from, because from my perspective, politicians often are convinced that schools, they know a lot about schools because they went to school, but sometimes the votes they cast and the decisions they make are based on a very limited set of facts as opposed to the whole picture.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts about question 1? Because we'll go on to question 2. We have about 15 minutes for each question, and we will accumulate all of this information and share it back with you. Okay, so do we have the collective will? I'm hearing not absolute, but I'm hearing yes, I think so.
I need to comment on something. Yes and no, because my kids would go to GPS, or one's now gone. There's very determined reasons why I sent my kids to GPS. And if those were not the most important reasons to me, I wouldn't have paid $21,000 a piece. So even though my children were part of those projects, and I'm a pastor, and I know there are times of the year the church gets very passionate about helping Christmas and Thanksgiving. One of my critiques to our church is, well, people are hungry every day. So some of this is just a self-gratification and self-anointing of that I did something good. It's like taking a 2-week mission trip to Africa and I come back, but I go right back to the same thing. So some of this, even though we're saying we're concerned, the truth of the matter is we're a capitalist society. GPS needs a differentiation between it and Brainerd. For someone who's capable of paying GPS to say, I'm going to pay for GPS. I'm not so enamored with the name of GPS that I'm just doing it for, I'm just going to give that money for the sake of giving it. No, I'm giving it because I see something there that I'm not getting everywhere else. And even with this political thing, the will, that's why I said the will is there, but why is your will? What's motivating you? And it's not necessarily what maybe we find in this room, or what might be isolated situations where there's a genuine concern. But truth of the matter is, I go help, then I come back to my space because I really don't want to share this space with you. Because it's a community problem. If my concern is really about the community does have the will, but I need to know why you're sitting at this table. What are you trying to get from here? And I think if we don't properly address that, be it political issues or whatever, but I don't know it's always the moral issue that we've talked about. And that's another answer we have to a different question, so I'll wait. But we have to ask the community, why do we want this to happen? I mean, we can take it outside of this, and I brought it up at the table. We have an opportunity in Tennessee to give every Tennessean health care, but we don't do that. And if the bottom line is how we're going to get it, then let's just get it done. So there are times when we have motivating factors, I'm a preacher too, so you got to stop me. But as a prison warden, I say I'm here to rehabilitate you, but I'm a privatized prison. So I need people going to jail or I lose millions of dollars. I'm making millions of dollars by people going to prison. So I can stand in front of the camera all day long and say, we're here to reassociate people back into society and to rehabilitate them. The truth of the matter is, I need a pipeline of people coming to prison because this is how I'm going to pay for my retirement. So even though I appear to have the will, I appear to come to the meeting, I appear to say I want something different, I need this. As a pastor, I need sinners. I do. Amen. If there's no more sinners, if we stop sinning, then God tells me, well, you have no more job, and I need a job. So I need a certain number of people to come there every week with a hopelessness that says, I need somebody to tell me that God still answers. And that's what I do every week. So the moment that that's gone, I need a certain number of people to keep coming to the church.
You don't have to worry, you're gonna have sinners. But if I am understanding you, are you saying that what Bess is saying may not be right?
No, I'm not saying that, because again, my children, I understand those projects. We have participated in that project. I'm saying look at a deeper level, why people have to do what they have to do. And sometimes it is a genuine humanitarian concern. But even in that, you have to examine the element, because I give of my time, but what I do for my daughter versus what I occasionally do for the person on the street is two totally different indoctrinations to who I am and why I'm doing it. And when you start talking about will, that is such a small word, but such a deep definition of what it means. Because I'm not so naive to say if Chattanooga wanted to change the educational system, it can change. When they decided to change the Riverwalk, that I wasn't even here, it changed. And we have the know-how and the skill set to make the change. But we have to look at what's motivating the change, what are people doing and why they're doing it, and then really ask the question, are we really trying to get to the finish line?
One of the things we also talk about skin in the game. You look nationally, we talked about here locally, what is about 75% of the people actually have children involved with the educational system?
25%.
25%. So we got 75% people paying taxes, and sometimes they may say, hey, I'm helping, I'm paying my taxes, but they're not touching it.
Right.
As a parent, you touch it, you know what's going on, but we got a lot of people very removed. So and it goes back to how you sell this. You got to sell it to people who may not even be engaged in that system anymore.
I agree with that. I think that's why our group said, I think we have a critical mass. The fact that your girl's going to GPS, but here you are speaking as passionately as you are speaking. I think you start with the people who have the passion, and then once they see that this is something more than just rhetoric, you're going to bring other people on. I don't think we have to have every single person when we start. I think there are some people out there who are doing something other than what they, in their heart of hearts, they want to believe this is true. They want to believe this is the way they should go. And what they need are some champions to help bring them along. So it's okay with me that there are some people who are not on board yet, because we are on board. And I think what we do can bring them along. But if, like you said, if we do nothing, they will do nothing. So I don't worry about 100%. I worry about the critical mass. We know we can get to lead this.
I worry a little bit, though, that we all gravitate to the things that will feel good to us and that we're a part of the solution. And if this is going to be different, it's got to be about the change that will really matter. And so that's part of with the private schools tension. Absolutely, do we need everybody? I believe, but it can't just be about the feel good. It can't just be about the afternoon tutoring session. This is about real change, and it's not charity. This is about repositioning.
And Sarah, that's where I would say I think. Yeah, I'm public school, so
Yeah,
don't
I
get me
know.
wrong. Grew up in public schools. Worked at GPS, saw what, when you have the right players in the game, what is provided for your child, for their education. And I think for too long, the attitude has been that these schools only want to look at it as charity. And what I'm saying is, take another look.
Yeah, right.
They really don't. Your daughters know they want to be involved in their community. They want to be involved in this. And that's just one of those, as Edna's saying, that's just one of those things that we're going to, you have to address and have a really honest and open conversation about it, and then you can begin to really move forward.
Actually, you are talking about answer to number 2. So let's move on to question number 2. Can all elements of our community work together to ensure that every child comes to school ready to learn, and that students and families have the supports they need to achieve success? Let's go down the list again.
No. The question, as Ms. Varner said, is not all elements. I think everyone in the community can agree that there are problems, but once you start talking about solutions or answers, those things are going to be contentious. And they're going to have different people fighting as soon as you make a proposal. And that is going to be the way it is. It's not a question of all elements, though. It's a question about whether there are enough people who can win.
You're suggesting that it's a competition.
I'm saying it's a power struggle.
Okay, so, yes.
That's it.
What are the elements of the power struggle?
The elements, the different constituencies that are involved, the different decisions that would have to be made, that for teachers, for administrators, for the students, the communities, the problems that are outside the school, how those are going to be, what the proposals are. All of those are going to have different people that fall on different sides of the line.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we had a no initially, and we kind of shifted it to yes. But I'm going to read this, and then hopefully I'll be able to explain it. So yes, but it will be based on politics and social aspects. Then we said if we can win small victories. I want to piggyback off of what he said, and I don't want it to be my opinion. I'm trying to keep the integrity of what the group says. Part of the challenges is that we understand that different people have different stakes in the game for different reasons. And we live in a society and community now, we're going to be honest, that is not all humanitarian. There are different agendas that bring different people to the table for different reasons. Like I said, if I'm a warden in a prison and this is how I pay my bills, I don't necessarily need crime to stop. I need it to survive. But as we raised up in our conversation, when you take the influence of politics and why people want to see certain things happen, they don't always do what's best for the people. So for the community to work together, there has to be a commonality of what we're really trying to accomplish. Are we really trying to reposition our community? Or are we doing that for self-agendized reasons? And if those things are not really dealt with, then the reality of us working together as a community, because we all have different stakes in the game, we're coming with it with a different hermeneutic and almost a suspicion. Why are you here? What are you after? You know, and unfortunately there are wolves in sheep's clothing that come to the meeting and come to the venue, and they're not necessarily coming to help as much as they're coming to take away. So.
Okay.
We said that the spirit of Chattanooga in our past indicates yes, that all elements of our community can work together. When you look at Chattanooga 1.0, the riverfront, the redevelopment of downtown, that we can, I guess kind of going back is will we, or can we?
Okay.
I think we answered with much tension, yes. We played so close to the line. It's a thin line in the middle, and there's the opposites. But with the spirit of Chattanooga, we talked about 1.0 being about place and 2.0 being about people. And it is people that make up our community. So we crossed over the line to yes. We believe that there is enough masses that we can bring together, as Sarah would say, Anna would say, to move forward.
Okay.
And our group also came sort of to the same conclusion, yes, with the right leadership, but also had a really great conversation about the relationships that need to be built between the different groups. That you need to have businesses partnering with schools to be the mentors for, their children and to introduce them to what life can be for them. And so relationships is key to bringing the community together for this.
It's interesting that you use leadership and relationship in the same paragraph, because I have heard it said with great fervor that leadership is all about relationship. It can't be a top-down or an autocratic experience. It has to work with relationship. Very good.
So we were the optimistic table, and we started out with yes. And then we talked about the components. We said there needs to be a strong vision that demonstrates clear potential, that is feasible, that people see as something they can do. It needs to be personal, so that everyone sees themselves as a part of this movement. and should be everybody across the board, from the schools to the businesses to the community groups to the university. And then we're going to copyright this comment that Warren made. So if you want to borrow it, we will pay him a fee. And his comment was, "We are small enough in size and big enough in assets to make this work."
Ooh. So make sure that gets in the report.
I will. We've
We'll give
copyrighted
him-
it. Y'all may borrow it.
Okay, any comments or further discussion? Yes.
I kind of just, when I heard this question, I kind of compared it to my own experience being a school psychology student. And I also agree with you all that it's very possible, because as a school psychology, we are meant to be liaisons for the students' other resources. Like, we'll collaborate in IEP meetings with those other professionals of the school, and we'll have to work with the parents, and we'll motivate the child and spread the word about things that may be happening in the school. So I kind of feel like as school psychology or school psychologists, it's also important for them to get the jump on, I guess.
Good. Any other comments about question 2? Well, it's moving well. Question 3, it all comes down to this. What gives you the confidence moving forward? There should be an in there. That Chattanooga 2.0 is different from previous education initiatives or global initiatives in Hamilton County.
I think the answer is still out on that. We preferred at our table to talk about what would give us the confidence, and that would be short-term wins, to see that Chattanooga 2.0 is doing more than just engaging people in conversation, that there are actions and maybe short-term or small wins that can achieve even small results that can be done quickly.
Would that be pieces of solution in various parts of the city that work, and some that may not work, but you learn from?
Low-hanging fruit, those answers that can be quickly seen and attained. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna read this. The role of the Chamber of Commerce in this initiative and the business argument, rather than just the moral responsibility for it. And that was given by one of our members. I really didn't comment too much on this answer, but it seems that, from when he said that, what I thought to myself was, if it appears that it's hitting the economic structure of our city, then it will bring more people to the table. That will give, some more viability to it, the success of it, or the projected success of it. So this is a personal comment that necessarily wasn't the group, so I want to make that clear. I'm open, I'm always hopeful. As a pastor, I'm just hopeful. But I guess I'm looking to see how does what's raised, what hands are those placed in? And how do we begin to truly empower the true elements of this community that will bring about transition? I just have a comment, and I'll be quiet. When I wasn't here, I've only been here a little bit over 6 years, so I didn't really see the Chattanooga 1.0, and I understand that. But when we say the community did that, was it the whole community? Did everybody participate? Because I still think there's an element we have not figured out how to get them to participate, and that's the one that we most often are talking about, is the group that doesn't participate. And we talked about exposure, and how do they know how to participate, or that they're welcome to participate, or what they bring to the table matters when they participate. So I'm curious to see how that works, because as a person who's always in these meetings, it's good to have meetings, it's great to have lunch and meet new people, but what happens after that? After we raise the questions that are similar in essence, questions we've been raising for the last 20 years.
So in our group, we said that we liked that this was goal-oriented, and that we're laying out, Chattanooga 2.0 is laying out very big goals and letting the community come together and kind of think through strategies. It's not being driven by a grant, so it's not here for a minute or a year and then goes away. And they also believe that the community engagement piece was better. The fact that we're bringing these diverse groups of people into a room and having this conversation in the first place is an improvement. I would want to echo what Pastor Ware said, that we've got to do better at meeting people where they are. I mean, I say this is a diverse room, but if you look around, it's not really that diverse room, and probably diverse of a room in our professional backgrounds. I think we're all probably business professionals, and we need to do a much better job of meeting people where they are in their community.
Bordering on hope, what we have written down is that we must move beyond discussion and just education. It's a much broader issue. What gives us the confidence, what gives me the confidence is that we're here. That's number one. But I did notice from the beginning of the meeting, when Jared was making his presentations, he gave us the answer, what happens if we do nothing? And he asked us a list of questions, and there was not much response from the group. We didn't really respond to each of those slides. And he said something like, there's this elephant in the room. And I think that some of the issues that it's going to take to get to the nitty-gritty are elephants that we're going to have to be willing to open up through leadership, relationships, to really talk not just about one phase of what it is. As we said, we believe education is the foundation, but everything else, economics, the economy, crime, poverty, access, all of it is based on it. But we believe that it could start with this conversation.
And our group was cautious in their confidence, and they said if all the stakeholders are willing to come to the table and roll up their sleeves and walk the walk, that we will begin to see progress with this initiative. And also it was pointed out that the Chattanooga Venture endeavor is a model that we could use going forward to see how this pushes through.
I think the only thing that I would add, because a lot of the comments that have been made echo what we said, is that we were more encouraged because we're not starting as a result of having the money. So lots of times projects emerge from you get the grant, you have the money, and you think, okay, this is what we're going to do with it. It's starting from a concern and a discussion, and then we'll figure out as we move forward those different components that need to occur. And we felt that was a good direction to take, as opposed to waiting until somebody gave you the money and then figuring out what it costs to do things.
Other comments? Let's get into this, folks. Do we have the will, which was the first question, and now it ends up with why and how? We may have the will, we may even have the how, but have we addressed the why? Do we really want to do this? Do we want to take the time from our busy professional and exciting lives to get down in the trenches and do what is required here? Do we? I'm hearing yes and no consistently. And I think that's a very honest response, and I appreciate that. Yes?
I think what Elizabeth said, though, is we're not clear on what the this is yet.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we have some topics, but when people are clear on what the this is,
What the strategies are.
what the problem is we're trying to solve.
What's required? You said, what is required? There's a whole lot of people saying, help us understand what's required of us to get to where it is you want to get to. I think that is a very real question.
Some of you may have heard the name Powell
But even-
Fay.
Yeah, but if we just say the problem is education, the problem is job, that's too big. It's gotta be the problem has gotta be better defined for people to know what it is you want us to do. You say, what do you want parents to do? You can't say, what do you want parents to do? Education. What do you want parents to do? Jobs. What do you want community people to do? What do you want private schools to do? We gotta better define what this is, what the problem is we're trying to solve.
I want to add one other point. From my previous role as the editor of the newspaper, I'll remind all of us that we didn't have everybody thinking that all the stuff downtown was great. We had a lot of people saying, we've forgotten the communities outside of Chattanooga. It isn't just about downtown. What are we doing in Red Bank, East Brainerd, Sunny Day, you name it? We got to bring that into this conversation, because while everybody loves what's happening in Chattanooga, it really is the center of what's made this place work. But over a period of time, particularly after the Bob Corker phase on the waterfront, we had a new administration that came in that really said we need to be doing more outside of the downtown. We don't need to forget that, because we're talking about bringing people back together. But we went through at least 8 years of people saying we've done enough downtown, we need to do things outside of downtown. So I just want to put that in, because it was an interesting conversation. I was in a meeting yesterday with that topic, and that individual was there still talking about it.
There's a famous saying, Paulo Freire. I don't know if any of you remember that name from kind of educational philosophy from Brazil, who was responsible for inspiring a pretty large scope change in the culture there. And his simple statement was, the road is made by, guess what? Walking. The route, how to get there, can't be handed down from some consultant or even committee. It has to be experienced by trial and error as you move along. And what I've appreciated most about what I've heard today is that no one has come up with a solution. The minute we say, this is the answer, and try to implement it, we will be flying in the face of what all the research. I've studied organizational change for many years, and it doesn't happen that way. It happens from the ground up, not from the top down, if it's going to be lasting. And I really have appreciated what I've heard here today, because it's grassroots speaking truth. We're not sure, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to do this, but we want to. What do you say? Shall we do this? What happens first? We got 2 to 3 minutes. If anybody wants any final comments.
I say we do it because we don't have a choice.
Yes, you did. You said that.
We have no choice. Now, how to get there, I don't know. But we have no choice, because we're not dealing with statistics. We're dealing with lives. We're dealing with families. And it's a sad time when the preacher loses hope. You gotta hold on to hope. And that's number one. But number two, I'm burying more kids.
That's a sad truth.
Oh, that's the reality. I'm burying more kids. That number is increasing greater than the graduation.
Any other comments? Yes.
I think an important thing also is community awareness. Does the community got, whatever community we're trying to help, do they have a firm grasp on the ditch they're in? You know?
Yes.
Because one thing to throw a rope down to someone, but another thing for the person to realize I need a rope thrown to me. You know, and
or that one has been thrown.
Right, exactly. So the community understanding the statistics and really understand that, hey, look, this is not the norm that you're living in. It's not the norm, but there's great. So
Good, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have a final assignment. Each one of you, your ticket out the door is to respond to 2 questions or 2 items, which are in the last sheet of the paper there. These will be summarized and a theme analysis, and then we will put together a report. There will be a video available of the conversation if anybody wants to avail yourself of that. This has been an incredible hour and a half, 2 hours, and I appreciate very much the intensity with which all of you have addressed a subject that we have agreed we don't know the answer to. But, what did you say?
That we're bearing more kids than we're educating.
Well,
That number is
that's the
increasing.
sad truth, but what did you say we
We have to, we have no choice. We have no
Yes.
choice.
And I think that's kind of maybe the point where we could end. We don't have a choice is the quote that I heard you say. We have to do this. All right, if we believe that, then we will act. If we don't act, what that suggests to me is that maybe we're still just talking. Anybody have another thought?
And one of the things that we sort of touched on just briefly is that I think that we have a real issue to watch where this could be masked for a period of time. And I'm just talking about employers. Employers are very resourceful. They will find workers. Chattanooga is a very desirable place, so there's a gap. We might see people coming and taking jobs. So for a while, this may look good. Also, the other thing is, we want to promote how great we are as a city, what's going on, and how the economy's good. So there's counter messages that are floating around out there. So I think that goes back to how this gets down to the essence of getting the issue. I think, we want business at the table, but they've got immediate needs right now. So how do they take the long-term view on this as well as the short-term view? I just need workers today, but I need a workforce for the future type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yep. All right. Listen, thank you all so much for coming and sharing of your thoughts and your souls. Let's give ourselves a hand for... Thank you.